Welcome to Tech Nerds, but Not Really, a podcast with a couple of friends sharing their experiences in consulting, barbecue, and life. We are Matt Rothman, Jake Arts, and I'm Joshua Karish. Tonight, we'll be talking about why is everyone talking about AI when it's been around for a long time. Matt, why don't you take us away?
Sure. And, Josh, Jake, we're in the Salesforce ecosystem, enterprise level software. AI is part of every single conversation now. And AI's been around for such a long time. Like, I had to take a step back for a second and, why is everyone talking about it so much now when it's been such a part of our lives for as far as I can remember? Did you guys ever remember the Roomba? That's AI. When we first had cell phones, I remember texting became a thing, right? And we had the T9 texting system. I hated it. I look, now I'm very happily married. I'm a father, but I was a single guy in those days, and I hated it when girls texted me. I would really text them back, call me. I would get really mad. But when we were on that T9, it had that predictive text. That's AI. Like, I remember websites in the early 2000s. You'd be there searching for things. All of a sudden, a chat function comes up. Hey, I see you're looking at this. Would you like to chat with someone about it? So I'm just really curious, and I want to kind of bring it to the group. I thought it was a great thing for us to discuss on this podcast is that, all over LinkedIn, all over our software level conversations, you can't have a conversation without AI being brought up. But then why was it not a thing 5 years ago, 10 years ago? It was a thing, but it just wasn't part of the conversation. So, I wanted to kind of talk to both of you. And Jake, maybe you can kind of first tell the audience officially, what is AI? Like, we know what AI is, but what is the official definition of AI? Like, what should we think of when we think of AI?
So, using one of our many AI tools, I asked for an official definition of what AI is, and globally, there's not a uniform definition of what AI is, but there is. But here in the United States, the National Institute of Standards and Technology has a definition. It's the definition. I'm going to read it straight from the screen here. It says AI is a branch of computer science devoted to creating systems that perform tasks that would otherwise require human intelligence, such as visual perception, a la your Roomba example, speech recognition and language translation, a la your T9 texting input, and decision making. And the interesting thing about that definition is that, first of all, that's a 2023 definition, and we're here in 2025. But the Oxford English Dictionary uses visual perception, speech recognition, decision making, and translation between languages. Now, if you remember another example, if you remember back in the day, Babelfish was a thing. They was I think it was a Lycos product. If Lycos is still around, and I'm probably aging myself, or Yahoo or whatever it is. But if you look, there's a couple of these definitions on a quick search have that same sort of thematic thing, right? Visual perception, speech recognition, decision making, and language translation. And I think that that these sort of thematic concepts are really important to ground ourselves when asking why is AI prevalent now. Because to be honest with you, Matt, when you suggested this topic, I was skeptical. I was like, oh no, AI has only been around for a few years. But look at these definitions. These definitions are telling us that AI has been around for a long time, and we've been using it for a long time and not knowing it. I have a theory as to why it's in the conversation now. But before I play my hand, Josh, what are your thoughts?
Well, so I was like you, Jake. When Matt put the question forward or the topic forward for tonight, I thought to myself, well, it's not. It hasn't been around. It's brand spanking new. But as I understand AI, it's LLMs, right? It's those things that sound like a human that's in everything I do. It's integrated into my phone, it's in my email. Heck, my meeting recorder is AI. And I just found out today that it's also looking at my Google Drive. And so that's what I thought AI was. But then when I started doing research via AI, it brings up these examples like you gentlemen were talking about, right? Spam filters, autocorrect, Netflix recommendations, right? I didn't even think about that, but that I always called it an algorithm, right? Because there was that transition where Roombas were stupid robots always stuck on the carpet. And then Netflix is starting to feed me stuff. I'm like, oh, I got the algorithm. And then the Chrome is feeding me stuff, all my algorithm. And so everything started to become an algorithm. But I think that algorithm was a step towards the AI, and we just didn't call it that. So I didn't recognize it as artificial intelligence. To me, it was an if-then statement that was fed enough data to provide something that was relevant to me. Turns out that's AI. And so it's been around a lot longer than I think I realized. And this conversation has definitely brought it forward. As I'm working lately with clients and so forth, it's really becoming apparent to me how important the data feed is for AI, right? Like, I can't even tell you about the magic that happens in an LLM, right? I'm not even sure the developers that build the stuff now really know how it's working on the inside. But the, but the sorry guys, I started talking about the data. Your data needs to be clean, it needs to be well structured, so the AI has a base for answering. And Jake, or it wasn't Matt, you were talking about the gentleman you used to work with, that early on, before LLMs were a major thing, he was talking about how critical the data was, right? Can you tell us, can you tell that story, please? I
Matt, you're
think you're
muted.
muted, Matt. Yeah,
All
Okay,
yeah,
right.
me
Hey,
too.
that now.
we're all having our glitches over here, but it's a great segue. I used to work with this solution engineer, and he had this saying that really, really, you know, made the client kind of stop for a second and think, right? He would always say, whoever has the most data wins. Now, to put a little caveat on that, like obviously it has to be clean data, like you just mentioned, it has to be actionable data. But, his overall sense was like, whoever has the most data wins as far as in the business world, right? Like you have the most data, you've captured the most data, you are then in a position to put it to use, to leverage it to enhance and improve your business, to enhance or improve your process, to be able to get information to your customers and clients in a faster way. Or it gives you everything you need to make better decisions or to automate certain things within your business. So he would always say, whoever has the most data wins. And the client would stop for a second and truly like think about that, and it really would put the conversation in a good place, and it would earn the trust of the client. And that solution engineer was fantastic. And AI is everyone's talking about it, even like people that aren't in tech right now, like AI. And the thing that cracks me up the most is like people think like AI scares me, and me being the jokester that I am, and the eight in the '70s baby that I am, I was like, why? What do you think? The Terminator is going to happen? Like that's what I think of. Like they're scared of AI. Like, oh, the Terminator, the robots are coming to take over. Like, is that what you think? Is that what you're scared of? But it's been part of our lives for such a long time, but now like AI is available to the smaller businesses, to the mid-sized businesses, to the non-technical businesses, and so on. Like it's in Google Apps, it's in all these applications that we're using. But honestly, Jake talked about. I don't want to show my hand just yet. Jake, what are you holding, buddy? I call your bet here. Okay, I call you down. Like, what is your hand? Show it
So,
to us.
here's the reason why I think AI is on the forefront of conversations is because you touched on it. You touched on it a little bit, Matt, and I'm going to expand on that. Right, AI is available to everybody now. Right, it used to be only available. You had your Roomba. It sort of knew the layout, and that's what it did. Right, but you couldn't take your Roomba and say, okay, now I want you to create a picture of my room. Now you can do that. You have tools you can do that. Whether you're using Gemini or ChatGPT or Copilot or Agent Force or whatever tools that you have, whatever tools you have at your disposal, everybody can get on and can leverage these tools for business or personal use. Right? And some of them come with a fee, some of them don't. Depending on the platform you're leveraging, it's available for anybody to use. And so the reason why it's in the conversation now and it's so prevalent now in the conversation is because it went from a capability that was sort of locked down for very specific use cases, that now anybody can leverage the underlying technology to create things, right? And whatever kind of things they want to create. I've got Josh has talked about his AI tools. I've got a bunch of AI tools that I've created, and they're there for us to leverage, for us to use without relying on the companies that are leveraging them to say this is how you're going to use it. I mean, think about the evolution of the internet. I'm going on a little tangent here, but I'll come back in a second or two. Think about the evolution of the internet, right? The purpose of the internet when it first came out was to support the military infrastructure of this country. Should we ever have a military nuclear strike by the Soviet Union, right? That was the plan of the internet. That was the plan of ARPANET and DARPANET and things like that, right? And then in the late '80s, early '90s, they opened up the internet for anybody to use. Anybody could do whatever they wanted with this network that's set up. And what happened? It exploded. So a technology that had been around for 30 years that wasn't accessible to everybody is now accessible to everybody. It's completely changed the way we live our lives today, right? The AI is the same way, right? It was only available to in certain scenarios, very specific scenarios, and now we've opened it up. And now with these large language models and other AI type tools are accessible to anybody, and anybody can spin up a GPT tool or a Gemini tool I think the Google tool is Notebook LLM or something like that. So all these cool tools out there
That's cool.
that you can use that are just accessible to you. And so that's why it's going from, I didn't even think AI existed when it really did, to we're using AI all over the place because now I can, and that's why it's in the conversation. There's my cards on the table.
Popularity,
Yeah,
the ability. Yeah.
accessibility.
What's that? Accessibility. Yeah, that makes sense.
And
So
I want to, and if I can just come back to what you said about the Netflix algorithm, because because you mentioned the Netflix algorithm, that is certainly an early adopter of AI. There's also the YouTube algorithm, and there was something that was mentioned somewhere years ago where you have these developers that are now YouTube is owned by Google, but you have these developers at Google who are writing pieces of this algorithm to surface videos to you when you're watching Netflix, right? Nobody knows how it works. Why does nobody know how it works? Because you had a developer that worked at Google from 2007 to 2009 or whoever it is. And I'm making up the dates, and they wrote a piece of the algorithm, and then they left. They went somewhere else, right? But they still use that algorithm. But if you ask somebody how that algorithm works, nobody knows because the developer that wrote it is gone. And as we know, technology initiatives often get very well documented, right? So
so well, so well.
so well. And I think it's the same thing happening with large language models, right? You have this underlying engine, this large language model engine. I don't think anybody knows actually how it works. I think that if you talk to the folks at OpenAI, the company that owns ChatGPT, and say, "How does this work?" They say, "Don't worry about it. It just does." I don't think anybody there knows actually how it works because there's foundational elements that have been built into this model that are that somebody wrote a little bit of code and that worked, and they included that in, and then somebody else wrote a little bit of code and that worked, and they included that in, and nobody really knows end to end how it works. They just know it does. Sorry, that was a little bit of a tangent, but I thought it was a point worth making.
It's very relevant. I've read a couple articles, and they may be, AI sludge, they may not be, who knows, but a couple of articles talking about this exact topic, that it's growing so fast and it's being assisted by AI as well to write the code for AI, that they're they're not able to precisely explain how it's working, which is a bit of a rub for businesses and corporations that are using it for sensitive data and doing sensitive processes, right? Like, you can't have a system that makes willy-nilly decisions that are non-predictable in the financial sector, right? The insurance, like, if you're giving an AI the ability to make decisions on an insurance claim, it has to be predictable in how that occurs. You have to know what it's going to do with that data as well when you give it to it. And that, I found that to be an interesting challenge, because if you ask me how Salesforce works, I can't tell you how Salesforce works down to the code, right? Like I didn't write the code. I know how the system works. And as long as it functions as designed, it's not going to do anything so outlandish. Like it's not going to send emails without me making a mistake to allow those emails to get out. Where AI, I can't always say that at this moment in time. And I think that's worth considering. It creates a moment for pause for companies and even people who are using it.
One thing that Jake said really resonated with me is the opportunity now for smaller businesses to use AI, right? Like it's at their fingertips. It's not only for large enterprise technology companies like the Netflixes, like the Googles of the world, like the small dog walkers or personal trainer, whatever it is, they can leverage it to enhance and grow their business. And, I have a old colleague of mine who like kind of just went off on his own and that's what he's trying to do, is trying to bring AI to the SMBs out there and giving them an opportunity to kind of leverage that tool. So, it's so readily available. We do our bit every podcast, ChatGPT. It's right there at our fingertips. I talked about other AI tools that I've used, WordTune, Grammarly, just little things like that someone told me about. I'm like, why wouldn't I use these things? So it's part of our everyday lives. That's why the conversations are there. I didn't have a Roomba growing up, so hey, my family was not an early adopter of AI. What can I tell you?
I don't think that's
Grammarly.
why you didn't have a Roomba growing up.
We had the shag carpet. It didn't work. It
There
didn't
you go.
work on the
It's
shag.
just not going to
So,
do it on
Age has
Shag.
nothing to do with that.
Grammarly, it's funny that you bring up Grammarly because I've been using that for years. I've relied on it for quality emails because admittedly, these don't work all the time. And from here to there, it gets lost. But with Grammarly, you can cede some of that responsibility to the technology. But I never thought of Grammarly as AI, but it has, yeah, I mean, I think that falls under the definition, doesn't it? Not only is it making recommendations on the word misspellings, but it's restructuring sentences, it's making true grammar corrections like an English teacher, which is, yeah, that's pretty
it
impressive.
can
Thanks for
even
pointing that out.
work on your tone and everything. But like, take a step back. Listen to what you just said for a second. You've been using Grammarly for a long time. You are a certified technology professional. You have your own tech firm. You're like, I didn't know Grammarly was AI. And
Yeah.
that's what it is, right? Like all these things have been part of our lives, but we didn't think of it as AI. Like it's just part of our lives. We use these things, we take them for granted, but like we have to kind of put this question to each other, like, why is AI so popular now? And then through all this conversation, things are coming out like, oh yeah, that's AI. The T9 texting was AI, or like predictive texting was AI, where it was just giving us an easier way, so we didn't have to type out the whole word. It would get like a couple letters in. Oh, there's the word. Click. Yeah, next one. This is AI. We didn't know it was AI at the time. We didn't even, we forgot that part of our lives because we have these iPhones now that do everything for us. We forgot those flip phones that we had where we had, where we were doing things like that. So it's interesting to kind of hear us. Wow. Okay. That's a whole nother podcast episode in itself. Josh and his flip phone. Okay. That's going to be, table that for the future audience. Okay. You're going to want to listen for that and his flip phone. All right. But like, ChatGPT, right? Like, I think this is a great segue to kind of just do our little ChatGPT bit. Okay. Like, this is where we kind of go to ChatGPT and I ask ChatGPT, right? Like, AI's been around for a long time. Why is everyone talking about it now? And ChatGPT, great question. AI has been around for decades, but several shifts in the last 10 years. So here's a couple of the things that it lists, and we can kind of talk about them here, right? Massive leap in capabilities, right? And it kind of talks about systems, some of these things that I don't even know about, right? ChatGPT was one of them. But, it made AI visible and useful to regular people, writing essays, coding software, holding conversations, and like a deep learning breakthroughs in 2012 allowed AI to outperform humans in tasks like image recognition, speech transcription We didn't even talk about speech transcription, right? Image recognition, things like that, facial recognition software, stuff like that. We didn't even talk about that. So that's a very interesting piece here. And then, the next thing I'm going to talk about is very interesting, and I'm going to let you guys kind of chime in on that. Explosion of computational power, right? Modern GPUs, graphic cards, cloud computing, huge data sets, things like that. So that makes a ton of sense to me, right? We got more power, more computer power to do that. Have you guys come across an example of something like that?
More power. All right. Well,
I
if you
think
didn't get
you
that
spoke
one,
to
we're
the
not going to
entire audience
explain
over the age of 40.
it.
Um, that's funny.
All right, I'll go on to the next one. That flew over my head. But that's okay, guys.
Well, but wait. Let's talk about power for a second,
Sure.
right? Because what was it? And this is a bit of a leading question, but what was the big technology fad, if you will, before these large language models came into play? And I'm not going to give you time to answer it. I'm just going to say mining for Bitcoin, right? Mining for Bitcoin, these cryptocurrencies, these NFTs, and I'm not a Bitcoin bro, but but these take a tremendous amount of computing power, tremendous, like constant, and as you said that, I'm sort of thinking, I wonder how foundational these large language models. I wonder how the mining for Bitcoin and that processing capability, when that came out, for these cryptocurrencies, I wonder if that had not existed, would we have these large language models that we're experiencing today? Did that level of computing power set the foundation for us for the large language models we're using today? It's kind of sort of popped in my head as you said that. I thought that was interesting.
It's a good question, worth researching a little bit. So
Okay.
I don't know if we'll ever be able to. I don't know if we'll ever be able to know the answer, because you can't really go back in time and not create the not create Bitcoin. I mean, that's just not possible. But it is interesting to sort of speculate a little bit. I'd like to. I want to take, if I can, if I may, I want to take the conversation back to where you just talked about, where you were talking about early types of AI, and I'm going to trigger everybody. I'm going to do it.
Yeah, real quick, Jake. Just want to say for our audience and for me, when Josh said the more power, ha ha ha, that was Home Improvement. Okay, right? The TV show.
Yeah.
Yes. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. The floor is
Tim the
yours,
Tool
Jake. Just
Man.
had to.
Tim the
Yes.
Tool
There we
Man
go.
Taylor.
So
All right.
so everybody's going to be everybody that is under a certain age is going to be triggered when they see this picture. So I'm going to share my screen really quickly. Now, who remembers this?
Oh man, what was
Right?
that? Clippy? Was that?
This
It was
Clippy.
Clippy.
This is Clippy,
Oh,
right?
so obnoxious.
So obnoxious. Hey, looks like you're writing a letter. Do you need help with that? Right? You know what? I didn't think about it until this conversation. Clippy was probably the earliest form of AI that anybody ever experienced, and it was annoying because
Oh, it
it
was
wasn't really well
obnoxious.
defined.
Right. It really couldn't do much. I mean, frankly, it got you a template maybe, but it really wasn't that helpful. I spent more time playing with it than actually doing work with it. And it
Right.
never really matriculated into a tool like ChatGPT. The day I started using it, I was like, I saw the value and was able to apply that to my business day one. Where Clippy was shut it off, get it out of here. It's taking up screen space, you know? That's interesting. You had another meme before we started, Jake. You still got that up? Because I
I
thought that was really good,
do.
actually.
I do. This is also sort of an interesting representation of our of where we are now with AI. I think Matt and I may disagree a little bit on this. I think this is anybody that's a Scooby Doo fan. We've got Freddy from Scooby Doo. He's about to pull the mask off of the villain and see who it is. Well, he's pulling the mask off of the AI engine, and what is it? Oh, it's just a bunch of conditional statements. It's just a bunch of if then else's and things like that. Anybody that's a software developer in the tech space knows that most technology runs off of conditional statements. I actually think that AI has evolved past this. I think that Josh mentioned algorithms. I think that these underlying algorithms may have replaced some of these conditional statements. But Matt, your thoughts were here on maybe this is still how AI works today.
Well, I mean, you're right how it's more complex now, obviously.
Yes.
But, these conditional statements, that's the foundation of how AI was created. And these LMMs, these, models that are being built, those conditions in just more complex, more in depth, more. But like, hey, like when we were talking about predictive text, or we're talking about Grammarly, or we're talking about any of these other AI tools, it has a lot of that built into it. It's just processing it so much faster now. We talked about the computing. Another piece here in this, chat GB, in our little chat GBT bit here is the growth of the internet, big data. There's billions and billions of photos and videos and texts and online interactions. Everything's out there now. There's so much data out in the internet that's just available to any of these models to pull from. So, the Scooby-Doo meme, it looked very basic in a way, but that's how AI used to be. And now AI today is way more complex because there's just so much more data out there to pull from, to work with. So, who knows? This Terminator reality could come true. Who knows? But it's look, it's got to start. You got to start somewhere, right? Like that, everything starts in a place and then it keeps growing and growing. It's just like when and this, Josh, you grew up with a lot of snow, right? And you had the little snowball and you rolled it down the mountain. It got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And when it got to the bottom of the hill, it was this big snowball, right? Much bigger than what you started with, right? Today, we have Chat GBT. We have all these huge things that are at our disposal now that we didn't have during the Scooby-Doo days.
So the question is, should we be excited or worried? Or at least that's what my chat GPT said at the end of this. And I want to share. So my wife and I were sitting there, I don't know, Saturday morning, Sunday morning, something. We were bored, chats out, and one of my friends had sent me a short reel on somebody who let ChatGPT tell them how it was going to take over the world. And so I thought, well, that'd be a fun conversation. So I asked Chat, how would AI take over the world? And the first thing it said is not Terminator. It said it wouldn't be guns and bombs. It would be convenience and reliance. Like AI would grow so much by making our lives easier that we would choose to integrate it in all aspects, and that we would happily give up the creativity piece for the ease of getting the tasks done. And I thought, oh no, I'm not. And then I stopped just as I said, oh no, because I really have ceded a lot to AI, at least in the workspace, right? First drafts and responses and ideation and just getting opinions and so forth. Like I've built it in a lot, and I'm thinking, geez, if ChatGPT was taken away today, it would set me back a little bit in the business for sure. Do you guys have any thoughts on excited or worried?
So the chat is right, and AI is not going to be coming in guns blazing and dropping bombs, right? Because at the end of the day, right, it's still a technology that requires electricity, and human beings can still shut it down, right? I can close the browser with GPT. I can, if things get really out of control, you could go to the OpenAI server. You could, compel the OpenAI server farms to shut down, and I would kill it, right? It's not like it's going to be. It's not like it's going to be in a position where it's going to be, walking around and hunting people down. That's not realistic. But it is going to. It is absolutely going to change the way it's already changed the way we work. It's going to continue to change the way we work. It's going to change economic conditions, and unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on the way you look at it, um, it's anybody that decides not to adapt or adopt the technology and change the way they work is going to be left behind. And I'll share a quick story. I had to talk to a farmer this week, a nice guy, but he doesn't use email, right? It's 2025. He doesn't use email, right? He's going to be left behind. And
Good for him.
if he's not using email, if he's not using email now, 10 years from now, he's not going to be using any AI.
He's my idol.
But I mean, that's you're going to have to adapt to the technology, and so people that are working today thinking like, oh, I write HR manuals for a living. You don't need to write an HR manual anymore. Your LLM will write the HR manual for you. You'll read it and move it along. Instead of it being a 6-month process, it'll be a 6-week process or whatever it is, right? And people that know how to write prompts, how to get what they need out of ChatGPT or Gemini or whatever, are going to be far more successful in the future. And people that are saying, "Oh, I don't use that because I don't trust it," they're going to be left in the dust. It's going to happen a lot faster now than we would expect.
I would agree.
Well said. And to close things out here, I'm back on my ChatGPT thing here, and their last comment is concerns over jobs, misinformation, and control. Right? It's as AI becomes more powerful, people worry job displacement, deep fakes, misinformation. Wow, if that's not part of our daily lives, I don't know what is. And this isn't a show about politics. We're not going to talk about any of that. But of course, misinformation is everywhere over the internet, over social media and things like that. And that it's just, those are the big concerns. I kind of joke about Terminator and things like that, but the conversation has kind of gone beyond tech to schools and governments or workplaces or things like that. If is ChatGPT writing your kids' papers, just different things like that. So the concern of AI is real. Misinformation, job stuff, controlling different things. So obviously, there are some concerns that people have over AI, and rightfully so. So we're going to end it there, and we're going to go to our sponsor, A-Town Pit Q.
Yes.
Jake Arts and his family featured on Fox 5 on the 4th of July. Jake, why don't you take a minute here as our sponsor and tell everyone about K-Town Pit Q.
So K-Town Pit Q, we are your at-home barbecue cooking school. You want to learn how to make the best ribs possible, or chicken to make your neighbors jealous, or even we've got a great money muscle recipe that we've been showing people how to make. And I'm tinkering right now. This is a little bit of a preview for what we're going to see in 2026 from the K-Town Pit Q. But we don't currently offer a brisket cooking class. But 2026, we might be offering a brisket cooking class. I got to get those briskets from those 19-pound behemoths down to like a 6-pound brisket, and then we'll be offering a brisket cooking class. So and right now I'm working, and I actually was a minute or two late to our recording today because I'm working on refining my chicken recipe. We competed in Kennett Square, Pennsylvania 2 weekends ago, and I got slaughtered on chicken. So, and I thought the chicken was fantastic. Everyone else thought the chicken was fantastic, except for the damn judges. So we're tinkering with the chicken recipe. We got a competition coming up in August in Edinburgh, Virginia. It's not a place that I knew ever existed, but it's out there towards the Shenandoah Mountains. And we're having a great time. So barbecue season is still in full swing. I think we're going to be kicking and screaming all the way to November, and then we'll take a little barbecue break and let our arteries relax.
I don't want my arteries relaxed. I want barbecue 365, and sign me up for that brisket class, okay? Because I love brisket. My mom would make it, but she didn't smoke it, so no way is it as good as Jake's brisket. So,
well, we're gonna have to keep this podcast offline now.
Yeah, it's my mom. She's like Jake Scott Farmer guy. She doesn't even email, so don't even worry about it. So there we go, gentlemen. A great episode of Tech Nerds, but not really. About AI. AI's been around for a long time, but why is everyone talking about it now? This was a great conversation. Thank you all for tuning in, and we enjoyed having you on Tech Nerds, but not really.
Thanks, guys. Have a great night.
Nice.